Morning. I'd like to welcome everybody to Legislative Day 23 today. And our purpose today is to set the calendar for Legislative Day 24. I'm going to ask Chairman Jasper if he'll open us with prayer.
Thank you. Let's bow our heads, please. Heavenly Father, thank you. When we walk outside today, we see a wonderful world you created, and we just praise the glory of it. Heavenly Father, look after us. Give us that wisdom to make the right decisions for Georgia, as we know we will. And, make sure you think about us, empower us to do great things. And we look forward to dedicating this day in your name. Amen.
Thank you. Just in case. Okay, well, we'll start going down the list as far as new bills that we have not discussed yet. And I'm going to call on Chairman F. Stration if he'll present his 333.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Rules Committee. House Bill 333 is before you today. This is the Ethics in Government Act this year. It was brought to us by the Georgia Government Transparency and Campaign Finance Commission. The bill does several things, but maybe the standout issues are, first of all, it provides a specific amount of time in which campaigns must maintain records and when the commission can bring complaints, what the period of time is. Second, it provides that funds raised for the runoff cannot be spent until you're actually in the runoff. And third, it makes clear that campaign contribution money cannot be gifted to a candidate's own nonprofit, charity, things like that, which would be an indirect way of personal use of the campaign funds. Would ask for your favorable consideration. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Oh, yeah. Okay. That's it. Thank you, sir. Okay. Representative Howard. See you out there? Not there yet. Okay. Representative Gunter. Okay, he's here. Ms. Lewis, would you give him the microphone there, please? Representative Howard, you have House Bill 437. 437.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill 437 is a bill that actually came through here last year and got caught up over in the Senate during COVID. But it's, I want to say it's a simple bill, but I keep hearing folks say when you say it's simple, you better be careful. So, but I think it is a simple bill for the state, for Georgians across the state with disabilities. And what this bill would do is require that service stations across the state would put signage on the pumps with a phone number to call in to the station if a disabled person drives up to the pump and needs assistance. And we've experienced this over the last few years. It's unfortunate that we don't pay attention to these things until we become disabled. We don't pay attention to them as normal human beings that are healthy and moving around. So we would ask your favorable support to this bill.
Okay. I don't see any questions. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you.
That was 437. Next is Representative Gunter, House Bill 409. House Bill 409. Morning, sir. House Bill
morning.
409.
Yes, sir. This is a Judicial Legal Defense Fund bill. The governor's on board with this. This provides representation to judges who get sued in cases that the executive branch is in it also, so the AG can't represent them.
Okay. Chairman Fleming, I think you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, isn't the issue that we're trying to resolve here is that occasionally when a judge is sued along with the governor and several other local officials, all the attorneys that normally defend them, whether it be the attorney general or the county attorney involved, they're conflicted out. And we heard testimony in committee about our current governor. When he came into office, there was only 2 days left to answer a lawsuit because of the disorganization in trying to find an attorney to represent a Superior Court judge, and that we've solved that problem in an organized method to try to reduce that confusion.
That's correct. And this bill creates a commission to pick the attorney and get it all done before the 30 days runs on having to file an answer.
Okay. See no more questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. What's your number over? The wall, okay. Well, if you got one of the handhelds, okay, you go on.
All right, thank you very much. General Yield.
Yes.
Who's able to contribute to this fund?
It'll come from the governor's emergency fund, and he has a big say-so in how all that takes place.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. Well, now I see no more questions since the wall is finished. Thank you, sir. Representative Reeves will be next. Representative Reeves, House Bills 271.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a very simple bill that simply creates some parity in the ambulance industry. Currently, public and hospital ambulances are eligible to receive some matching federal money, and private ambulances companies are not, and this will change that so that they can receive the same funding.
Make it uniform across the board then, huh?
That's
Okay.
right.
All right. Any questions? Seeing none. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Representative Belton. Representative Belton, House Bill 289.
Yes, sir. Thank you. It's the fourth from the bottom on the modified structure. This bill has two purposes. One thing it does is it organizes, cleans up, and clarifies the requirements for a driver's license under the age of 18. And the other thing it does is it allows a person under the age of 18, if they enlist in the Army, their armed services, to immediately take the driver's license. This is helpful because when they enter the military, they may enter E1, E2, or E3. And as Representative Al Williams knows, there's a lot of difference between a private first class and a buck private.
Okay. All right. See no questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Representative Glanton will be next. Representative Glanton. House Bill 303.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I bring to you this morning House Bill 303, located on the consideration calendar as page 1 and the first bill on the page. Page 1, the first bill. Mr. Chairman, this is a bill that we've seen before. This bill passed this committee last year and was 1 minute away from sine die, and ran out of time. But basically, for those who do not remember this is a bill that simply allows the insurance companies to reduce the premium, automobile insurance premiums, for active duty, reserve, and National Guard military between the ages of 18 and 25, so that they can get the same consideration for premiums as we do 26 and over.
Okay, there's no mandatory, it's just optional. The insurance company has the option to do it or not.
absolutely passive, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
There's no mandates.
All right, I see no questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members.
Next will be Mr. Corbett, and he'll be talking about House Bill 336. It's yours. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I bring before the Rules Committee today House Bill 336, LC 441689S. What we're doing here, we're clarifying the definition of what constitutes processing. We align Georgia's hemp law with the federal language that they just finally finalized their rules and regs. We clarify the background and fingerprinting process for the GBI, and we are lowering the renewal fees for the processor from $50,000 to $25,000, and we're raising the surety bond from $100,000 to $300,000. That's what we're doing in this bill, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. See no questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, Representative DeLoach. He'll be looking at House Bill 338.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, this is about as simple a bill as you'll see all year. What it does is it simplifies the language in who is entitled to receive a veteran's driver's license in the state of Georgia. The language got a little confusing, and the department decided they needed to have the VA certify you were entitled to one, so you had to go down to the VA and sit maybe half a day, maybe longer. This simply takes the language out of the federal statute that defines who is a veteran and puts it in our veterans driver's license statute, and that's all it does.
Okay, well, I don't see any question. I just got a question for you as it relates. I think you've been here before.
Yes, sir.
I think if I remember hearing you right, that while you were here, the rules chairman would be kind of different than what we're doing. He'd say, well, we'll look at all the female bills today, and the next day all the even number of bills, and then the next day the odd number of bills, and it was just, you come out there and wait for a couple of hours and go home and not do anything.
That's exactly right. A lot of times you sat there half a day and I never even called on you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Williams. Hold on, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the gentleman that's presenting the bill, is it true that is it not true that you served in this body in years past?
Yes, I did.
Is it not further true that you're here when there were horses and stables were in the basement of the building?
Very, very close to that time.
All right, thank you, sir. Okay. That's when Calvin was here. Okay, Representative, let's see. House Bill 364, Representative Collins, he's requested that that bill be moved back to committee. Do I hear a motion on that? I move in a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. It's gone. All right, Representative Dollar, House Bill 384. He's not here? Okay. Representative Ridley, I know he's here. I saw him when I came in.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Morning, sir.
I bring House Bill 392, and what this bill does is right now in current law, it says that you got to be 200 yards away from a school to be able to sell packaged alcohol like at a convenience store. And what this is going to do is actually give the authority to the locals who actually issue the license to be able to take that down a little bit. In your rural areas like mine, you may have a high school that sits on 280 acres, and the land next to it is, because it's got to be property line to property line instead of entrance to entrance, which I tried to have it changed and you can't because of 07 case law. So what this will do is let the authorities determine if they want to issue a alcohol license to a convenience store, depending on where the school is, because ours is on 280 acres and it's a quarter mile off the road, but the land across the road they can't use for a convenience store. And so all of our fuel cells are going to Tennessee.
Okay. Representative or Chairman Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, I think I heard you correct. So you said we're not mandating any changes. We're only allowing the locals to decide if they want something less than 200 feet. Is that right?
Yes, sir, that's correct, and the Department of Revenue helped me with this, and that's kind of an issue they've been having too.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, see no more questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Representative Leverett. Bill 443.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Morning.
Thank you so much for your and the committee's consideration of House Bill 443. House Bill 443 would update, strengthen, and modify existing provisions of Georgia law to prevent the unscrupulous from taking advantage of the disadvantaged. It deals with a admittedly somewhat obscure transaction known as the sale of a structured settlement, which is a settlement in a lawsuit that's involves a lump sum payment, involves payments over time, and occasionally the former plaintiff will sell that structured settlement stream of money to get a lump sum later on due to some unexpected financial need. And the formulas by which that is done are very complicated. It's very complicated financial stuff, and so this act makes sure that that person is given certain disclosures and that other interested parties are notified. It updates law that was adopted about 20 years ago by the General Assembly, brings it more into line with the model act that's been enacted in 48 states, and prevents us from becoming sort of a haven for unscrupulous members of this industry. And it's supported by the industry and supported by a national council.
Okay. Who's 79? Who makes Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Does the gentleman agree that it's my money and I want it now?
Yes, sir, I do. Does the gentleman have a particular debt that he's trying to remind me of? I don't recall one.
Okay, I see no more questions, thank goodness. That's it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the committee's consideration.
All right. Representative Vance Smith, House Bill 449. It's yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it, members of the committee. It's on the second page, about halfway down, HB 449, LC 364612. The members of the Association of the Georgia Utility Coordinating Council have been meeting since June. They always look at their code and their procedures as far as safety. That's their number one issue when installing any type of utility in ground, any repairs to pipelines or power lines in ground. And they keep this updated because we will make sure we keep the permitting and the inspection process here in Georgia instead of the federal government coming down and taking over our process. So keeps Georgia at the forefront. It's all about safety. Call 911 if you hit as one example, and just updates to the code.
Okay. See no questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Yeah, he's got another issue. Representative Washburn. Representative Washburn has House Bill 476.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 476, working from LC number 364701S. This bill makes the Professional Engineers and Land Surveyors Board an independent state agency and a separate budget unit. It will operate much the same way as the Georgia Real Estate Commission, the Bar Association, and others like that. There is no fiscal impact. The expenses of the board will be paid for by new revenue generated by them, and Chairman England has been in the conversations about this bill.
Okay. See no questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Representative Scoggins, House Bill 488.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the same exact bill I brought last year. It was House Bill 765. And what this bill does is it adjusts the minimum population for compensation for magistrate judges. We did the COAG in 2019. This just brings the magistrate judges up with them. It only affects about 70 counties. The others are all under local legislation, and this would not affect them.
Okay. See no questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, Representative Gaines, House Bill 509.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 509, what this bill would do is if the portion of the Affordable Care Act that ensures protection of pre-existing conditions ruled unconstitutional, or if Congress were to pass a law to overturn that, it would ensure that Georgia protects pre-existing conditions.
Okay. All right. I think that is being supported by the Attorney General.
And the Department of Insurance, yes, sir.
Okay. All right, very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
See no more questions? Thank you. All right, Representative Prince. He has H.R. 77.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I present today House Resolution 77. It's a supporting and encouraging resolution for a state cemetery to be built in the Augusta area. This is part of a packet that would go up to the Federal Veterans Affairs as to try to get funds as well as support to do that. Everyone knows the Augusta area with the Fort Gordon, as well as a lot of contractors who are retired coming in to help support the Cyber Command. We feel that the nearest cemetery would be, they're having to travel to sort of like to Milledgeville and places like that. But if we have one close by, I think it'll definitely help out the families and the veterans.
Okay. I see Chairman Fleming over doing like this. So
yes, it's supported by most of the
okay.
Sorry.
Well, I see no questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Dollar. Okay. He has House Bill 384.
Thank you, Chairman. This is my first time doing this year.
Maybe last. Go ahead, Matt. Chairman Dollar, excuse me.
384, it authorizes police, it gives them the ability to issue a vehicle citation to the vehicle owner if they're in the car but not driving currently. They have to issue to the driver. It doesn't mandate anything, it just gives them the ability to do that. This bill will sound familiar. We passed it out last year.
Yeah. Well, Chairman Dollar, I don't see any questions.
Well,
you can leave now.
All right, thank you, Chairman.
Don't stay away so long. Okay. Who else is out there? Oh, come on in. Yeah, I heard comments there. Yeah, he's got a coat on today. And I also heard that when somebody asked him about it, he said, "My coat is glued to my body."
Mr. Chairman, you know, as a child, I read the book, The Emperor Has No Clothes. I have decided to write a new chapter of the legislator that has no coat.
Okay.
So that is...
You're going to have your own caucus or something like that, right?
That's right. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, I have it's a House Bill 328. It's on the first page, third from the bottom.
Okay.
This bill lowers the fees that telecoms pay to put their infrastructure in the right-of-way. In short, if an infrastructure provider doesn't have a retail end user, Georgia Code pushes them to a base GDOT rate from the 1980s that is out of date and in some cases even exceeds the actual revenue received by these providers.
Okay. All right. I think Whip Kelly, don't you have a substitute for that? Which is LC 364712S.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I bring you a Rules Committee substitute to House Bill 328. The change occurs on line 185 through 189. In committee, we had significant debate on making sure that we address the concern of the municipalities as well as one of the members of the minority party in regards to making sure that the some fees that the municipalities are allowed to collect right now are still applicable in regards to small sales. And so that's what we did, lines 185 through 189, make clear that we're not trying to preempt those fees from the municipalities. And so this is a friendly amendment to the members' bill and something that's meant to address a concern that we heard in committee and trying to help our municipalities get a little more comfortable with the measure, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Chairman Fleming, do you have a question for on the substitute?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Go ahead.
The whip mentioned that they were working with our local governments to make them more comfortable with this. Do they support the bill?
I'm not sure if they're in support of the entire bill, but they should be at least more supportive of our substitute. If not, we could take those lines out for them if they want the original versus the other. But I don't know if they'll ever get completely fine with the bill, Mr. Chairman. But I think it's good policy in terms of helping us expand our rural broadband coverage. But the substitute is meant to help at least make the bill more palatable to them.
So if I may, Mr. Chairman, you began to touch on what I was trying to understand exactly what we were doing here. So what currently exists on the right-of-way, and how are we changing it, and what are we changing it for?
This is meant to bring certainty, and the author of the bill can expand more, but it's meant to it is lowering fees that are able to be collected on the right-of-way in terms of fiber that's used for broadband. And we know that's been a priority of this caucus of this legislature to try and expand broadband service across our state. And so by helping reduce the right-of-way fees, that's the goal here, is trying to bring some certainty to those fees.
One other point, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
so how are we regulating one fee for everybody across the state, or are we mandating they lower it by a percentage? How are we affecting that fee?
It is setting the fee in accordance to some federal guidelines and charges.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, who's 51? Chairman Martin.
Thank you, and I don't know if this is to the whip or to the author of the bill, but isn't it true what we have here is, you mentioned outdated right-of-way fees. In rural areas, we charge $1,000 a mile is what the DOT charges. In urban areas, we charge $5,000 a mile, and the way the code currently is, that's what cities default to charging, and we're seeking to reduce that substantially, which isn't it true, I agree is a good policy. I brought up in subcommittee, and I would bring it up before rules. I think if it's a good policy to reduce that fee because we're trying to get broadband out there, and we are, isn't it true that we ought to take a good hard look at the state doing that as well and reduce that fee that is outdated from the 80s of $1,000 in rural areas and $5,000 in urban areas that the state DOT charges for this same service? Isn't it true if it's good enough that we reduce it to promote broadband for and take the revenue away from the cities to make it fair, that we ought to participate as a state? Would the gentleman agree with that?
Mr. Chairman, since he kind of did say it, I could possibly answer as I've mentioned to Chairman Martin. If he'll bring me that bill, I'll be glad to sign it, number 2.
Okay. Is that Representative Hughley with you? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On this fee reduction, we're going from 5,000 to what is it going down to?
So if the question's for me, it's going to go to $264 per mile. And so to several points, and this is the way I explained it in subcommittee and full committee, is that really this is an outlier fee. So we're bringing it's several deviations out of what somebody would a provider would normally pay in the right of way from the get-go. And so we're just bringing them from outside several deviations, outside the mean, and just bringing them within the mean. I think it's very honorable to try to get this parity. I'll be the second signer on that bill, to the chairman's point. But this just kind of brings it into the realm where what everybody else is paying, right? It's very convoluted. There's federal fees, and there's state fees, and there's franchise fees, and they all operate in different ways and have their different advantages, and those are all negotiated by the different companies, and a lot of times they're federal.
And so that means the locals are just going to lose revenue with no recourse? Is that what this means?
I think that this brings them back into the realm. So, for example, and this is an example that I made in subcommittee, that there are many instances where a provider is paying more in fees than they're taking in revenue. So, if you can imagine opening a peanut shop selling $100 of peanuts and having to pay $125 to your local city to sell $100 of peanuts, that's probably not a good business venture. And so if our goal is to expand, broadband in our state, then I think this is a measure that's well worth it.
Chairman Hawkins.
I assume this legislation is similar to what has been in the past, and that these fees that we're talking about, the 5,000, 1,000, are fees charged by just a few cities, and these are pass-through fees. When there are end users within the city, municipalities or counties, that is based on a 3% tax. So although this seems like a complicated piece of legislation, at the end of this bill, it will provide greater access to broadband across the state. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have one final question to the author. Isn't it true that these outrageously high fees simply get passed on to the consumers who ultimately are trying to have broadband for their kids to do their homework, for them to be able to do telemedicine at home? During this pandemic, isn't it been even more clear that we need to expand broadband, and by reducing these outrageous fees that local governments are lining their pockets with, that this will help expand broadband in rural Georgia?
Mr. Whip, without a shadow of doubt.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, we've got a substitute for 328, and the substitute is LC 364712S. Do I hear a move on the substitute?
Move.
Got a move and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Okay. All those opposed, raise your hand. Okay. It passes. Okay. 328, substitute 364712S passed. All right. Thank you, sir. Okay. Now, Speaker Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask for your consideration of House Bill 370. It only pertains to the Fulton DeKalb Hospital Authority, and the most important part of the bill isn't listed in the heading. It further clarifies what's in current law, that no more than 1% of revenue shall be utilized to pay for the authority's personnel costs, so that the bill, if it passes, will most likely result in about $1 million more per year going back to Grady Hospital to be used to pay existing pension obligations and for indigent care. It puts in place term limits that are similar to the Grady Hospital corporate board, and that's all the bill does.
See no questions. Thank you, ma'am. Chairman Cooper, House Bill 458 and House Bill 539. Got two.
If I may, you've left out one thing about past rules chairman's meetings. They met at 11 and 12 o'clock at night often, so thank you very much for not doing that, as we would wait.
No, you won't see me here at 11 or 12 o'clock at night, I hope.
So it was an interesting time, then to have to drive home. Thank you, sir. On House Bill 458, this puts requirements, just like we had to take a course about sexual boundaries and correct in dealing with our colleagues. This puts education on the medical board, on our physicians to take at least at minimum a 3-hour course on sexual boundaries and what it is to overstep those boundaries, so that they are clearer about it. And it also tells our medical schools to put that kind of education into the medical school training. It also has the medical board, give us a report each year about how many cases that they have had and how they've disposed of them, whether it's private order, public order, they took it with a license, whatever it was, so that we have some idea of how prevalent this is in the state of Georgia. They also, it wasn't clear, and this clarifies that the board members have the right, if they feel like a physician is dangerous to patients because of sexual misconduct, that they can move and suspend their license before there's any court of law that rules in finality about that. Is there any questions?
All right.
That's
I
that
see
one.
no questions. Let's do the next one.
Okay, 539. It's taken me a year to get the medical board to move on changing the institutional license. We have a license that would allow us to have foreign doctors that did not graduate from medical schools in the United States and do a residency in the United States to have a way to practice medicine. It has been very stringent, and it has them work under another physician in their specialty, but it allowed it only in hospitals. This opens it up a little bit. We don't want inferior trained physicians in the state of Georgia, but occasionally we will have a fine physician that applies for a license, and this opens that up to not only hospitals but to clinics. They have to work with Medicaid patients for a period of time, and the board is in favor of this, but we're really down to when they say they're going to vote on the final rule, and I really was afraid that they might not do it, and so I am moving this bill just to make sure that it is done. Thank you, sir.
Who's 27? Oh, Chairman Sessler.
I just want to thank Chairman Cooper for this, that the issue of foreign trained doctors, there's been some incredible folks I've encountered over the last years, and I appreciate her efforts on this.
Well, I don't think this will open a huge number of them coming in because many of them still had inferior type education, and the board is very careful about who they allow in. But we are turning away people that have had 2-year fellowships at Emory, and they can't get a license in this state. And, you know, this is not acceptable. If we get 10 new doctors in 5 years that are highly qualified, we need them in this state, especially in the specialty areas.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. See no more questions. Chairman Powell, House Bill 466. What's your number? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 466, this comes from the driving schools in DDS. A lot of this bill is clean up language on a lot of antiquated language and combines it, but it does just a handful of things. First, it changes the requirement of the DUI schools when they're teaching that course from 20 to 16 hours. As I have been told by these folks, and I think Mr. Montalban would know more than I would, but the people, the psychological folks who write these programs, they have a 20-hour class, and that is taught over 2.5 days. Most of these offenders do 8 hours on a Saturday, 8 hours on a Sunday, and have to come back for a 4-hour class on a Monday night. And they have restructured this type of DUI class, even though I've never had one, so I couldn't tell you what it does. But they're recommending to go to a 16-hour class, so it's a more concise and unified course for 2 nights a week. Second thing it does is, my glasses on. This allows for a Zoom platform online for schools, driver education in this pandemic. What's going on today is that it's just the new normal of being able to do Zoom and online platforms. This allows for third-party testers, which test for non-students to do testing for the driver's license examinations. This is in conjunction with DDS. Y'all may remember that when this pandemic struck last spring, that because of the downfall of testers, that they were giving driver's licenses to young adults, first-timers, without even being tested to get through. And DDS is working with these private driving schools to be third-party testers after they're scrutinized by the department. And it allows the DDS to authorize these third-party testers to be authorized by DDS after 6 months of training. And the last thing it does, it just notifies DDS when there's a change of ownership of the schools.
Okay, got a question. Chairman Jaspers.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman Powell, just got a question on that reduction of hours. So you're saying that those who create these classes, I guess they're uniform across the state, that they've rewritten the curriculum so that it fits 16 hours rather than 20. So they're getting the same amount of information, same training, same.
That's what I understand. Apparently, the DUI schools, they pay a franchise fee to these companies that do the psychological type of whatever the course is, and they've seen that they can pack it all into 16 hours as opposed to the 20 hours, because what they were having was folks that had to go to these courses. They usually go to them on the weekends, and they spent 8 hours on a Saturday, 8 hours on a Sunday, and a lot of them were working on the Mondays, and they couldn't get back to them. And the way the requirements are, they want it all to be run together. So it's not like you do 8 hours this week and come back next week. It's all concise, so it packs into them to try to teach them what the failure in their behavior has been when they get caught drunk driving.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Webb. Okay. Thank you, sir. All right. See, no more questions on that bill. I guess now it's time to set the. Okay. Now you do have a question.
I do have a question. I was just verifying something to the author of this bill. Isn't it true that this body passed House Bill 1020 last year, which is very similar to the bill you're presenting right here, and it included the reduction from 20 hours to 16 hours?
Yes, sir. That's my understanding, if you say so.
Okay. All right. That's all the questions, and I understand it's everybody who's got a bill that hasn't presented their bill yet, so we can go ahead and start setting the calendar for tomorrow, day 24. Okay. Under modified open, House Bill 437. Do I hear a move? Got a move and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. It's on. Modified open, H.R. 77. Got a move and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. Modified structure, House Bill 152. Got a move and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. It's on. House Bill 271. Got a move and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. House Bill 275. Got a move and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. Okay. Well, we're going to rescind that. Mr. McDonald was out today and could not, and I understand why he was out. So we will, 275 will be taken off of the calendar for tomorrow. I hear a move. Move and second. All in favor say aye. Okay, it's off. No, I thought he presented another one yesterday. Okay.
You think he'll be here tomorrow? Because I argued with Carolyn about it. When we brought over Carolyn.
We're right. Okay, no, wait a minute. Did you? Okay. All right. That's okay. No, that's all right. Okay. Okay. I stand corrected. He presented the bill yesterday. Okay. House Bill 275. I hear a move. Got a move and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. It's on. Okay, I gotta have one every day. House Bill 289. I hear a move. Got a move and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. Okay, House Bill 336. I hear a move. Got a move and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. It's on. Still under modified structure. House Bill 338. I hear a move. Got a move and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. It's on. House Bill 370. Got a move and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. You know, you'd think the sponsor would be the one that moves those things, wouldn't you? Okay, House Bill 370 is on House Bill 384. Do I hear a move? Got a move and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. It's on. House Bill 395. Do I hear a move? Got a move and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. Okay, House Bill 409. Got a move and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. House Bill 449. Got a move and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. House Bill 458. Got a move and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. All right, House Bill 488. Do I hear a move? Got a move and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. House Bill 509. Do I hear a move? Got a move and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. Okay, let's run through them one more time so be sure everybody's got them on the list. Under modified open, HB 437, HR 77. Under modified structure, 152, 271, 275, 289, 336, 338, 370, 384, 395, 409, 449, 458, 488, 509. That's the agenda for tomorrow. Y'all have a great night. Oh, 1 second.
Mr. Chairman, I move that pursuant to Rule 33.3, we limit debate on each bill to no longer than an hour. Time to be allocated at the discretion of the Speaker.
Okay, got a motion to time limit second. All in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. Okay, raise, y'all don't leave. Raise your hand for the noes. It passes. There's a 1 hour time limit. Thank y'all.